On this week's episode of Caribbean Diaries.
There is just this lack of an ecosystem. So we're putting startups, we have actually launched applications now for startups in the region to get involved to participate in an 8-week course where they'll be learning from some of the best minds in the world. They'll be getting access to up to $600,000 in resources from some of our partner companies. Those include companies like HubSpot, in some instances, Google, Facebook, Stripe is one of them, Shopify, which is the world's largest e-commerce, I would say, support system, really, or engine, amongst others. And it's a wonderful opportunity for startups, and we're very excited.
Welcome to Caribbean Diaries. On this edition of Caribbean Diaries, we're going to be speaking to Kirk Hamilton. He is co-founder and entrepreneur for TechBeach Retreat, and he's going to be sharing with us ways in which he is taking Caribbean startups closer to global access. Hi, Kirk. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me. Definitely a pleasure.
All right, so let's start first of all with TechBeach. Give me a little bit of history.
So we started this in 2016 as a platform to really attract the global tech and innovation ecosystem to connect with the Caribbean. We felt like, if we wanted to build great innovative companies, the environment on the ground in the region just was not right for people to be able to achieve the kind of success they wanted to pursue. And that was because the major players in tech from around the world had no presence in our market, no footprint, they weren't looking. And to be fair, we weren't really talking to them either. So we went on a mission to start inviting, as I said, the global tech ecosystem into the region, and we're here now. 4.5 years later, we've partnered with everybody from Google, Facebook, Dropbox to LinkedIn, and really managed to create this new space for innovation and technology in the region.
Wow, I mean, when COVID hit, you must have said to yourself, thank God we started so many years ago, because it meant that you were already a little bit ahead in the way the region moves. So right now you're trying to assist Caribbean startups. Tell me a little bit about that initiative.
Yes, so we have secured $1 million in funding from the Inter-American Development Bank as our first foundation partner to help accelerate digital transformation in the region with, in one area, particular focus on supporting startups. So we're launching something called TBR Lab. It's an accelerator program really designed to arm startups, but also corporates, with the resources and tools necessary to thrive in a digital economy, right? People are trying to build technology platforms and launch these great companies and such like that. But the realities of the region are that we don't have certain benchmarks in place, right? As I was mentioning earlier. So oftentimes the playbook is missing. The access to the networks is also missing. And, there is just this lack of an ecosystem. So we're putting startups, we have actually launched applications now for startups in the region to get involved to participate in an 8-week course where they'll be learning from some of the best minds in the world. They'll be getting access to up to $600,000 in resources from some of our partner companies. Those include companies like HubSpot, in some instances, Google, Facebook, Stripe is one of them, Shopify, which is the world's largest e-commerce, I would say, support system, really, or engine, amongst others. And it's a wonderful opportunity for startups, and we're very excited.
Yeah. What is it about, and I said it to one of our previous guests, what is it about the Caribbean that makes the world so interesting? Because when you mention some of the tech giants, the fact that they are partnering with you to get into the Caribbean market says something about us. What is that?
You asked me a very interesting question there, because the reality is actually that sometimes, the Caribbean is in a relatively challenging position when it comes to the pursuit of business and how we have been positioned in the world over the last few decades. But that being said, I mean, I think the warmth of our people is the thing that is most attractive to anybody from the outside. So even when we are, presenting to some of these organizations, you have to imagine that the scale of many of the companies that we look to partner with actually outweighs that of the GDP of most islands in the region, right? But that being said, they usually warm to the story of our people. And once they get into touch with our people, that heightens and elevates the interest to be involved, to help drive impact, and to look at the region as a potential profit ground for the long term.
Yeah, you mentioned that the ecosystem and the infrastructure needs some help. Have we improved since COVID-19? What are still some of the areas that we have to address moving forward? Because there's no turning back now in terms of how people access business in the digital space.
No turning back at all. What I can easily say is that from 2016 to now, we've improved significantly. That being said, in terms of the response to the pandemic, the response to digital in other markets has been quite feverish. I think we remain a little bit behind. That being said, there's still some bright spots, right? But the reality is, like you said, it's an inevitable path that has now been accelerated by what is going on with the pandemic. You want to see a greater level of embrace, but I think the biggest thing that is still necessary in our region is, well, two things. One is a shift in mindset, people embracing digital and innovation and understanding the difference between the two more clearly is very important. And then networks, right? The reality is we live in a very global landscape, and a lot of times we tend to miss out on what that reality means. And when you start talking about tech and innovation, that reality becomes even more clear. I always say to people, the technology ecosystem, which is what got me interested, is a boundless space. People tend not to care about geography. They're willing to reach beyond any kind of boundary, and their typical focus is on impact, right? How big can we do this? And I think we as a region need to get to that place where we stop talking about ourselves as small, we stop talking about being small and start focusing on being big, right? We're a very small place, yes, geographically in the grand scheme of the world, but especially Jamaica, we know, has punched above her weight. And we need to assert our position in the global landscape and really make the world know we are serious about tech, innovation, and the digital future.
Yeah, I think one of the things for us is, we're afraid sometimes to walk into the unfamiliar. And so it's, do I offer sales online? What's the sense of security that I have, that I protect the customers, that I protect my own business? Sometimes it's navigating all the different spaces that pop up. I'm still trying to figure out LinkedIn. Does your company assist startups that really are, for the first time, navigating the digital space?
So I have to say, it's interesting you bring that up from the standpoint of it's so aligned with what we do, in that all the tools and resources are there, right? And it's just a matter of people having a full understanding. We are in discussions with a number of governments, especially in the region, around programming for SMEs that are looking to go digital. And we have some partnerships in place to deliver that knowledge base to our client base soon. We haven't officially launched that yet. We're very focused on just getting the Startup Accelerator, which goes live April 30th. But as I said, applications are now open. And then our Corporate Accelerator, which caters to corporates and governments in the same way that I've mentioned for startups, that goes live about 2 weeks later. And once we have those two pieces kind of settled and going, we intend to launch some programming for SMEs to get into the digital space, right? And as you pointed to, sometimes it's very simple things, right? It's people understanding LinkedIn as a space to drive opportunity. None of what I am saying to you would be possible, actually, if we didn't have LinkedIn as a tool and a medium, and if we didn't leverage it, right? In a lot of instances, it's people just knowing that there's a platform like Shopify and that there's this templated opportunity to get your business into e-commerce, right? And finding some of the right suppliers to help. But the misunderstanding is often that it has to be overtly expensive to go digital. It really doesn't. And also that, you have to be this tech genius, which quite honestly, again, you don't have to be, right? Tech is really just an opportunity, as I see it, to take manual tasks, digitize them, but the focus when you do this has to be on creating an amplified product, right? And the reason I emphasize that is a lot of times what people end up focusing on, including large companies to be fair, is digitizing processes, right? So they take the process and they literally try to put it into tech, but it doesn't do anything different than the manual approach had done. So for me, I always say to people, your focus has to be how can implementing the technology version of what you're doing or the technology version of your product increase the reach of it, increase its footprint, increase how it impacts the people that are using it, etc. That has to be the mindset you apply around it, because otherwise then there's really no use, right? It's like, when we think about digital wallets, I think is a good example. We've seen many approaches fail that simply try to take the concept of cash and turn it digital.
Yeah.
And the reality is this: people never really complained about going to the market and having their, a couple $1,000 bills in their pocket to go and buy what they need to buy. We claim it as an inconvenience, but if the digital cash mechanism can't do more for me than change the way I transact from giving the cash to pointing a phone at the other person who then has a phone to receive, what's really the point, right? Now, if the tool does way more for me, then I'm going to align with it. And simple things like managing my budget, etc., are the kind of add-ons that typically people are looking for that help to increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of whatever they're doing using technology.
All right. Before you go, give us some hints for startups that need to apply. What are some of the things that they need to have in place when they head to that computer and try to send the applications in?
So I'll admit we are on a hunt for the best in the market, right? So the typical applicant who will be successful should have a business already, tech-enabled or purely tech-driven. We are looking for marks of traction, but we're very aware of what the ecosystem looks like. So we're either looking for some, proof of revenue, or in some instances that you've raised some capital. It doesn't need to be anything over the moon. Like I said, we understand the realities of the market, but what we're really looking for are entrepreneurs who have gotten started but are likely hindered by the dynamics of the ecosystem, wherein we can offer them some fuel to the fire to get that growth and scale that anyone who steps into entrepreneurship, especially tech entrepreneurship, is looking for, right? And to be fair, that's really it. We need a dedicated employee in the founder at a minimum, and then they're good to go.
All right. Where do they find you, Kirk-Anthony? Because I'm sure everyone who's watching is now heading to apply, and they're looking out for the SMEs.
So we are at techbeach.net, and if you go on our website, you will see all the information needed. Just look for any tab that says TBR Lab, and it will lead you to where you need to go. But the connection is techbeach.net, and you can find us on all platforms by searching the same: Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're live on all.
Yeah. Your last words to Caribbean small businesses, corporate startups about the future beyond COVID-19?
I always say to people, I stepped on the path that I'm on with the various platforms we've built with a very simple thought process. When I look outside my window in Jamaica or any other Caribbean island, to be quite frank, I always imagine that it can be a lot better than what I see. And so I think about it not as is, but what the future might hold. And I would encourage everyone to simply adapt that mindset and take that into the work that they're doing. We often get bogged down by, some of the dynamics of our region, despite the fact that we seem to be very happy people. Don't think about it as it is. We need to focus on building what we want and what we imagine the world should look like. And that's really my mantra, and I encourage anybody who can adapt it to do the same.
It's a great mantra to have. And thank you so much for spending some time with us here in Caribbean Diaries.
Thank you very much for having me. It was definitely an honor.
All right, there you have it, Kirk-Anthony Hamilton, co-founder and entrepreneur of TechBeach Retreat. On our next episode,
we have embarked on a 5-year strategic plan, which will see the digital transformation of the assessment within the education and training system. And we are not allowing for this digital transformation to only focus on assessment. We are looking at impacting and influencing what happens within the teaching, learning, and assessment environment. And as such, our strategic plan will be geared towards ensuring that this becomes a reality right across the region.
And that wraps up another episode of Caribbean Diaries. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next time.